demonstrate for you the experiment to determine the empirical formula of magnesium oxide. It's in our textbook on page 242, and I'll run through the instructions as per the textbook. So I'll just pull that over. So I've got all the equipment here, and the first part of the procedure says to heat the crucible with the lid for 5 minutes. Now, so that you don't have to watch this just being heated for 5 minutes, I've already done that. The next part is to weigh it. So what we're basically doing is weighing a really dry crucible. This here is the crucible. It's hot because I've been heating it for 5 minutes. I'm going to pop it on the digital balance, which I've already tagged to 0. Put the lid on, so I've got the whole lot. Put the top on and that to stabilise, and the mass is 18.229. So I'm going to be recording that in the data table. So it's important that you have this data as well. 18.299 grams. I'm then going to put in 10 centimetres of, or 20 centimetres I think, of magnesium, which has had the surface cleaned. So magnesium is quite a reactive metal. When it's allowed to be just in the atmosphere, it'll react with oxygen and nitrogen in the air, and it will form a whole load of compounds on the surface which give it a sort of dark grey or black colour. So I'm just cleaning those off with a piece of sandpaper, and I think number 3 is the thoroughly cleaning, and then number 4 says to record the appearance of the magnesium. So this is fresh magnesium, not any of the oxides or nitrides that form on the surface of it. There you go. I'll then coil that up and place it into the crucible. It's sort of a bit springy, it's metallic obviously, so it tends to want to behave a bit like a spring. Go figure. So there it is, coiled up. Pop it into the crucible. Fortunately that's cooled down enough now for me to touch it as well. And put that on and record the new mass of the magnesium and the crucible and the lid. So I've got 18.436. Okay, so this next bit says the mass of the magnesium. I'm going to leave you to deduce what the mass of the magnesium on its own must be. I'm going to take the crucible, the lid and the magnesium, return them over here to the Bunsen burner. The crucible sits on something called a pipe clay triangle, which sits on top of the tripod. It just allows it to be heated more directly by the Bunsen burner. So I've got that set up. So we're now down on part 6 of the method, if you're following it along, and it says actually heat it without the lid, so it's a good job I just checked that. And pop the lid down here. Heat it without the lid until the magnesium begins to glow, and then use tongs to put the lid on, excuse me, before it bursts into flames. If it bursts into flames, then the magnesium oxide that's being produced will just end up in the rest of the room, and we won't be able to measure its mass very accurately. Alright, so let's get on and record its mass. I'll pop my safety glasses on over the top of my normal glasses, so lighting my Bunsen burner. Nice roaring blue flame, and I'm heating the crucible with the magnesium directly. So as I mentioned, magnesium is quite a reactive metal. It's going to want to combust, so as it gets hot, it'll start to get to a point where it's got enough energy to exceed the activation energy, react with the oxygen in the air, and start to form the product. What we want to do is just wait till we're almost at that point, and pop on the lid so that as it oxidizes and forms magnesium oxide, it's doing so but leaving the product inside the crucible so that we can weigh it. All right, it's beginning to glow now. Really taking too long at all. There's a little bit of an art to this. I want it hot enough so that it keeps reacting once the lid's on, but not so hot that it's actually going to oxidise completely and form magnesium oxide, and I'm going to lose all my product. So I want to trap that magnesium oxide in here. What we're going to then do is weigh everything that's formed with the crucible and the lid and deduce how much magnesium oxide is actually being produced. That will allow us to work out how much oxygen reacted with our magnesium. And if we convert both the magnesium mass into moles and the oxygen mass into moles, we should be able to work out the molar ratio and therefore the empirical formula of the magnesium oxide. That's our goal. Okay, it's glowing really nicely now. And once it's glowing, I'll pop the lid on and we'll allow it to heat for another 10 minutes. And that should allow the remaining oxidation to take place. Okay, while it's heating during that 10-minute period, just allowing a little bit of oxygen in as we go. So just sort of lifting the lid a bit and placing it down. I don't know if you noticed there's a little bit of white fumes came out. So that's one of the limitations for this experiment. We shouldn't really be losing that much magnesium oxide as we go. However, if we don't lift the lid at all, the oxygen can't get in there and we'll have a lot of leftover magnesium that hasn't reacted. So, as I mentioned before, it's sort of a little bit of a game of working out what's best to allow it to oxidise, which is what we want, or lose some of the oxidation product, which is what we don't want. And unfortunately, lifting the lid does both. So there's not really any good ways around that. I love the fact that I can see this glowing beautifully. It's just such a shame that you couldn't be doing this yourselves with the COVID-19 crisis on at the moment and everybody learning from home. If you were here, I'm sure you'd be enjoying lifting this up, watching it sparkle inside just as much as I am. In fact, this is actually quite fun because normally I wouldn't do this experiment. I'd leave it for the students to do. So I'm enjoying myself even though things are a little bit challenging. So, allowing some in and allowing some off. And I'll keep doing that for the whole 10 minutes and we'll come back once we've heated for 10 minutes. Okay, so that's the 10 minutes of heating with the lid on done. We're going to take the lid off now, and step 8 is to remove the lid and heat the crucible for a further 5 minutes to ensure complete reaction. So, looks pretty good, it's a bit greyish. Pure magnesium oxide is actually totally white, so hopefully we've got a good reaction happen there and complete reaction of the magnesium to mostly magnesium oxide. We'll see when we do the data analysis. So we'll leave it for 5 minutes. Okay, so it's had a further 5 minutes of heating. I'm now going to turn the Bunsen burner off and pop the lid on and allow it to cool. Once it's cooled, we will re-weight. Okay, so the magnesium oxide and the lid have cooled down and the crucible have cooled down. Okay, so the magnesium oxide, the crucible and the lid have all cooled down. So we're now going to weigh those. I'll just transfer that to the top balance. Not forgetting the lid. It's probably cool enough for me to touch, but being on the safe side. Pop the lid on. We've got 18.529. record that. 529.